Get out of the vehicle now before I drag you out, boy. The officer's hand slammed against the driver's window so hard the glass vibrated, his other hand already unsnapping his holster. Marcus's heart stopped, his AP chemistry textbook sliding off the passenger seat as his hands trembled above the steering wheel. Officer Derek Whitmore stood 6'3" with 20 years of unchecked authority, the kind of cop who'd never been told no and never faced a single consequence. But he had no idea that the thug he was about to humiliate was about to become the final nail in his career's coffin. It was 4:47 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon in Charlotte, North Carolina. The kind of autumn day where the sun hangs low and golden, where the trees along Independence Boulevard show off their reds and oranges. Marcus Johnson was driving home from school. Simple as that. 17 years old. Senior at Myers Park High School. 3.9 GPA. Captain of the debate team. Accepted early admission to Morehouse College, following in his grandfather's footsteps. He was driving his mother's Mercedes E-Class, a sensible sedan she'd bought used 3 years ago. His mother had asked him to pick up his younger sister Kayla from her dance class across town. Marcus had the auxiliary cord playing gospel music, his grandmother's influence, and he was thinking about his college essay, the one about growing up watching his mother break barriers. He wasn't speeding. He wasn't swerving. He wasn't doing anything wrong. But here's the thing about driving while black in America. Sometimes, just existing is enough to make you a target. The blue lights appeared in Marcus's rearview mirror at 4:52 p.m. He felt that familiar chill, the one his father had warned him about, the one his mother had prepared him for since he was 12 years old. If you ever get pulled over, his mother had said, hands on his shoulders, eyes serious, you keep your hands visible. You say yes sir and no sir. You don't reach for anything without announcing it first. You come home to me, you hear me? You come home. Marcus signaled right. He pulled into a gas station parking lot, well lit, public, cameras everywhere. Smart. His mother had taught him that too. He rolled down his window, placed both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, and waited. His heart was pounding. But he'd done nothing wrong. He had nothing to fear. Right? The patrol car sat behind him for 3 full minutes. 3 minutes of Marcus watching in his rearview mirror. 3 minutes of his palms sweating. 3 minutes of wondering what he'd done. Finally, the officer emerged. Officer Derek Whitmore. Badge number 4471. 22 years on the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. He approached the Mercedes slowly, his hand resting on his weapon. His eyes scanned the interior of the car. Then they landed on Marcus. And something in those eyes changed. Something cold. Something ugly. License and registration, Whitmore said. But it wasn't a request. It was a command. It was a threat. Marcus kept his hands visible. Yes, sir. My license is in my wallet, in my back pocket. My registration is in the glove compartment. May I reach for them? Textbook. Exactly how his mother had trained him. Whitmore's lip curled. Just get it. Slowly. Marcus moved like he was defusing a bomb. Slow. Deliberate. He handed over both documents. Whitmore looked at the license. Then at Marcus. Then at the car. This your vehicle? No, sir. It's my mother's. I'm borrowing it to pick up my sister. Whitmore snorted. Your mother's? Yes, sir. And what does your mother do that she drives a car like this? Marcus paused. Something about the question felt wrong. Felt loaded. She works in public service, sir. It was the truth. Just not all of it. Whitmore leaned closer. Public service. He said it like it was a joke. Right. Step out of the vehicle. Marcus's blood ran cold. Sir, may I ask why I was pulled over? I said step out of the vehicle. I understand, sir, but I have a right to know. You have a right to shut your mouth and do what I tell you. The officer's hand was on the door handle now. Marcus's mind raced. He thought about Philando Castile. He thought about Sandra Bland. He thought about every story his mother had told him, every news report that made her cry at the kitchen table. Sir, I'm going to step out slowly, Marcus said, his voice trembling but steady. I'm not resisting. I just want to understand what's happening. He opened the door. He stepped out with his hands raised. And that's when Officer Whitmore grabbed him, spun him around, slammed him against the car. Hands behind your back. Sir, what did I do? You're driving a stolen vehicle, that's what you did. What? This is my mother's car. Sure it is. Whitmore's voice dripped with sarcasm. And I'm sure you've got the registration to prove it. Oh wait, he held up the document Marcus had handed him. Says here the owner is Denise Johnson. That your mama? Denise? Yes. That's my mother. Then why is a Denise Johnson driving a $60,000 Mercedes? Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. His mother had bought this car. Paid for it. Worked for it. But to this officer, a black woman owning a nice car was impossible. A black teenager driving it was criminal. Sir, you can call her. She'll verify. I don't need to call anyone. Whitmore snapped the handcuffs on Marcus's wrists. I know a thief when I see one. Across the gas station parking lot, a woman was filling up her minivan. Her name was Patricia Coleman. 54 years old. Retired schoolteacher. Grandmother of 6. And she'd been watching the entire encounter. Patricia had taught in Charlotte public schools for 31 years. She'd seen a lot. She'd seen good cops and bad cops. She'd seen students rise and students fall. And right now, she was watching something that made her blood boil. She pulled out her phone and hit record. The video would later show everything. Every word. Every action. Every abuse of power. But Patricia didn't stop there. She walked closer. Not too close, she knew the danger. But close enough to be heard. Excuse me, officer? Whitmore spun around. Step back. This is police business. I can see that. Patricia kept her phone raised. I'm just wondering why you have that young man in handcuffs when he's been nothing but polite and cooperative. I won't tell you again. You know this is being recorded, right? I'm live streaming to Facebook right now. 300 people watching already. Whitmore's face went pale. Then red. Turn that off. No, sir, I don't believe I will. This is a public space. I have every right to record. You're interfering with a police investigation. I'm standing 20 feet away asking a question. That's not interference. That's citizenship. Whitmore made a decision. A bad one. He let go of Marcus. And he started walking toward Patricia. Give me that phone. No. I said give it to me. And I said no. Touch me, and you'll have a lawsuit so fast your head will spin. Whitmore stopped. He looked around. Other people were watching now. An older white man pumping gas. A young Latina mother holding her toddler. A black teenager on a skateboard who'd stopped dead in his tracks. And every single one of them had their phones out. Whitmore was surrounded. By witnesses. By cameras. By accountability. He turned back to Marcus. Get in the cruiser. Sir, I haven't done anything. I said get in. Patricia called out, what's his charge? What's your badge number? What's your name? Whitmore ignored her. He shoved Marcus toward the patrol car. But before he could open the door, another vehicle pulled into the gas station. A black Cadillac Escalade. Government plates. Tinted windows. Asterisk asterisk if only Whitmore knew who just arrived at asterisk asterisk. The Escalade's door opened. Out stepped a man in a dark suit. Earpiece visible. Badge clipped to his belt. He wasn't local police. He was something else entirely. Officer, the man called out. You need to release that young man. Now. Whitmore's hand went to his weapon. Who the hell are you? The man held up his badge. Special Agent Raymond Carter, North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. Step away from the minor. This is CMPD jurisdiction. And I'm telling you there's been a mistake. That vehicle isn't stolen. The owner has been verified. Verified by who? Agent Carter's jaw tightened. By me. When I ran the plates 5 minutes ago after concerned citizens reported your traffic stop on social media. That car is registered to Denise Michelle Johnson. Yeah, so? So you might know her by her other title. Asterisk asterisk, but this was only the beginning. Asterisk asterisk. Agent Carter stepped closer. Her Honor, Mayor Denise Johnson. Of Charlotte. The silence that followed was deafening. Whitmore's face went from red to white in an instant. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. The mayor. Yes. The mayor. And that young man you have in handcuffs? The one you accused of stealing his own mother's car? Agent Carter pointed at Marcus. That's her son. Patricia Coleman let out a sound that was half gasp, half laugh. The other witnesses murmured to each other. Phones kept recording. Officer Whitmore stood frozen. I didn't know. Clearly. Agent Carter walked past him and knelt beside Marcus, still handcuffed against the cruiser. You okay, son? Marcus nodded, but his eyes were wet. I tried to tell him. I tried to explain. I know. Your mom's on her way. My mom knows. The whole city knows. Carter glanced at the witnesses, all still recording. This went viral about 4 minutes ago. Your mother got a call from her chief of staff. She's not happy. Marcus let out a shaky breath. Yeah. I can imagine. Carter stood and turned to Whitmore. Uncuff him. Now. I was just doing my job. Your job is to protect and serve. Not to profile and terrorize. Whitmore's hands trembled as he removed the handcuffs. Marcus rubbed his wrists. Red marks. They'd been too tight. Patricia approached slowly, still recording. You got all that, officer? You want to apologize to this young man? Whitmore said nothing. That's what I thought. Patricia turned to Marcus. Baby, you okay? Yes. Thank you for filming. Honey, I've been teaching black kids for 3 decades. I know exactly what this world does to our boys. She shot a look at Whitmore. And I know exactly the kind of people who do it. Asterisk asterisk, what Whitmore didn't know was that his worst nightmare was still 15 minutes away. Asterisk asterisk. At 5:23 p.m., a black SUV pulled into the gas station. 2 motorcycle officers escorted it. The door opened. And Mayor Denise Johnson emerged. She was wearing a navy blue pantsuit, pearls her mother had given her on her wedding day, and an expression that could freeze fire. Denise Johnson was 52 years old. The first black woman elected mayor of Charlotte. A former federal prosecutor. A civil rights attorney before that. She had argued cases before the Supreme Court. She had stared down senators, CEOs, and criminals. And right now, she was just a mother. A mother whose child had been violated. She walked toward the scene, Secret Service, borrowed from a visiting dignitary, flanking her. Marcus! Her son's head whipped around. Mom! She pulled him into her arms. Held him tight. For a moment, she wasn't the mayor. She was just Mama. Are you hurt? No. I'm okay. Let me see your wrists. He showed her. The red marks. The bruises already forming. Denise Johnson's eyes went cold. Ice cold. She turned to Officer Whitmore. You. Whitmore swallowed. I. You put your hands on my child. I didn't know who he was. Does it matter? The question hung in the air. Does it matter? Denise stepped closer. Would it have been acceptable if he wasn't my son? Would it have been justified if his mother worked at a grocery store? If his father drove a bus? If his family lived in public housing? Whitmore couldn't answer. Because I'll tell you something, Officer Whitmore. She read his name tag. Badge 4471. I know that number now. I'll never forget it. I was just... You were just what? Doing your job? Denise laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've heard that excuse before. Every civil rights attorney has. You know who else was just doing their job? Every officer who turned fire hoses on children. Every cop who looked away while lynchings happened. Every badge-wearing coward who decided that black skin was probable cause. Whitmore's face twisted. Now hold on. No, you hold on. You held my son. Against his will. Without cause. Without justification. Because you looked at a black teenager in a nice car and you saw a criminal. The car matched a description. What description? A black Mercedes in a city with 10,000 black Mercedes? That's your probable cause? Whitmore fell silent. Agent Carter stepped forward. The police chief is en route. Good. Denise turned back to Whitmore. I hope you've enjoyed your career, officer. Because it ends today. ***, but here's where things took a turn no one expected that ***. Patricia Coleman was still recording. Still watching. And something was bothering her. Officer Whitmore, she said slowly. I know that name. Whitmore's eyes darted to her. I do. I know that name. Patricia's brow furrowed. You were at Eastway Middle School. About 12, 13 years ago. Whitmore stiffened. I've worked a lot of places. You worked the school resource officer position. You were there for 2 years. Patricia's face hardened. You were the one who arrested Javon Mitchell. The name hit the crowd like a thunderclap. Javon Mitchell. A 12-year-old black boy arrested in 2011 for threatening behavior. His crime? He'd slammed his locker door too hard after being bullied. Officer Whitmore had tackled him. Handcuffed him. Charged him with assault. Javon had been expelled. His life had spiraled. And now, at 24 years old, Javon Mitchell was serving time for a robbery conviction. A conviction many believed started the day a cop decided a 12-year-old slamming a locker was a threat. Patricia had taught Javon. She'd tried to intervene. She'd failed. I remember you now, she said, her voice shaking with anger. I remember exactly who you are. Mayor Johnson turned to Agent Carter. I want this officer's full record. Every complaint. Every incident. Everything. Already pulling it. Whitmore took a step back. This is harassment. No, officer. Denise's voice was steel. This is justice. Finally catching up to you. Would you have stayed quiet in her position? At 5:41 p.m., Police Chief Harold Warren arrived. He was a tall black man, 61 years old, with graying temples and 35 years in law enforcement. He'd risen through the ranks. He'd been shot twice in the line of duty. He'd buried 4 officers. And he did not tolerate dirty cops. Mayor Johnson. He nodded respectfully. Marcus. Are you all right? I'm okay, Chief Warren. The chief turned to Whitmore. Derek. Harold, this is a misunderstanding. Chief Warren. You'll address me by my rank. Whitmore's jaw tightened. Chief Warren. This is a misunderstanding. Is it? The chief pulled out his phone. Because I've just watched 6 different videos of this misunderstanding. I've got you on camera slamming a minor against a vehicle. I've got you on camera refusing to provide probable cause. I've got you on camera attempting to confiscate a citizen's phone. That woman was interfering. That woman was exercising her constitutional rights. Which you, as an officer of the law, should know. Whitmore fell silent. Chief Warren stepped closer. Badge and gun. Now. Harold. That's an order. For a moment, it looked like Whitmore might argue. Might resist. Might make everything worse. But the cameras were still rolling. The witnesses were still watching. And even Derek Whitmore wasn't stupid enough to resist in front of the entire internet. He unclipped his badge. Removed his service weapon. Handed them over. You're suspended without pay, effective immediately. Internal Affairs will be conducting a full investigation. Don't leave town. This is political, Whitmore spat. This is just because he's the mayor's son. No. Chief Warren's voice was final. This is because you're exactly the kind of officer that gives the rest of us a bad name. This is because I've been getting complaints about you for 15 years. This is because you should have been fired a decade ago, and today, you finally gave me the ammunition to do it. He turned to his sergeant. Escort Officer Whitmore home. He's done. But this was only the beginning of what would unfold. The next 24 hours moved fast. Agent Carter's investigation turned up Officer Whitmore's complete personnel file. And it was damning. 17 complaints of excessive force. 12 complaints of racial profiling. 6 complaints of harassment. All of them filed by black or brown residents. All of them dismissed. Dismissed or unfounded or insufficient evidence. Every single time. For 22 years, Derek Whitmore had been a walking civil rights violation. And the system had protected him. Every step of the way. The story exploded. National news picked it up within hours. CNN ran it at prime time. MSNBC dedicated a full segment. Even Fox News couldn't ignore it, though they tried to spin it as politically motivated. But the videos didn't lie. Patricia Coleman's footage had been viewed 11 million times in the first 12 hours. 11 million people watched Officer Whitmore slam a teenager against a car. 11 million people heard him say, "I know a thief when I see one." 11 million people saw exactly what driving while black looked like in America. And just when it seemed things couldn't get worse for Whitmore, It started with a Facebook post. A woman named Tanya Richards, 38, posted a video of her own. From 2019. She'd been pulled over by Officer Whitmore for a broken taillight. Her taillight wasn't broken. He'd searched her car without consent. He'd made her stand on the side of the highway for 45 minutes while he ran her plates. He'd let her go with a warning. But she'd never forgotten. "I was too scared to report it," she wrote. "I knew nothing would happen. They never believe us." Her post was shared 14,000 times. Then came another story. Marcus Williams, 24. Pulled over in 2017. Whitmore had accused him of matching a description. Marcus had been handcuffed, searched, and released without charges. His dashcam footage had captured everything. He'd been too afraid to share it. Until now. Then another. And another. And another. By the end of the week, 4 to 7 people had come forward with stories about Officer Derek Whitmore. 4 to 7. Spanning 2 decades. Some had video evidence. Some had police reports that had been buried. Some had nothing but their word. But together, their voices painted a picture that could not be ignored. A picture of a man who had turned his badge into a weapon. Who had used his authority to terrorize the very community he'd sworn to protect. The reckoning was coming. While the media firestorm raged, Marcus Johnson was struggling. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt those hands on him. Felt the metal of the handcuffs. Heard that voice. "I know a thief when I see one." His mother found him in the kitchen at 3 a.m., staring at the wall. "Baby. I can't stop thinking about it." Denise sat beside him. "I know. I did everything right. Everything you taught me." Hands visible. "Yes sir, no sir." Pulled into a public place. His voice cracked. "And it still wasn't enough." "I know. What's the point? What's the point of doing everything right if they can still..." He stopped. Couldn't finish. Denise took his hands. "Marcus, look at me." He looked. "What happened to you was wrong. It was unjust. It was evil. And it was not your fault. Do you hear me? It was not your fault." "I know, but..." "No buts. You did nothing wrong. He did everything wrong. And now, finally, he's going to pay for it." "But what about the others? The ones before me? Nobody believed them." Denise's eyes glistened. "I know. And that's why we fight. That's why we use our positions to change things. That's why your grandfather marched. That's why your grandmother voted when they tried to stop her. That's why I ran for office. So that when this happened, and baby, I always knew it might happen, we'd have the power to make sure it never happened again." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I want to speak," he finally said. "What?" At the press conference. I want to speak. Not as the mayor's son. As Marcus. As someone this happened to. I want people to see that it can happen to anyone. That a 3.9 GPA doesn't protect you. That a Morehouse acceptance doesn't protect you. That nothing protects you when you're black in America. Denise studied her son. Her baby. The boy she'd raised. The man he was becoming. Okay, she said. Then you'll speak. ***, what Marcus didn't know was that his speech would change everything that ***. The press conference was scheduled for Saturday morning. 3 days after the incident. City Hall Plaza was packed. News cameras from every major network. Reporters from across the country. Civil rights leaders who had flown in overnight. And hundreds of ordinary citizens. Black mothers who'd had the talk with their sons. Black fathers who'd lived these stories themselves. Teachers, doctors, lawyers, bus drivers. All of them there to witness. To support. To demand change. Chief Warren spoke first. Officer Derek Whitmore has been terminated from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, effective immediately. Additionally, he is facing criminal charges including assault on a minor, false imprisonment, and civil rights violations. The FBI has opened a federal investigation into his conduct and the department's handling of prior complaints against him. The crowd erupted. Cheers. Tears. Relief. But also anger. Because why did it take this long? Why did it take a video? Why did it take the mayor's son? Chief Warren continued. I want to be clear about something. This should not have happened. Officer Whitmore's history of misconduct was documented. It was reported. And it was ignored. By my predecessors. By supervisors. By a system designed to protect officers over citizens. That system failed. It failed the 4 to 7 people who came forward this week. It failed the countless others who never came forward because they knew no one would believe them. And it failed Marcus Johnson. He paused. I am implementing immediate reforms. Every complaint will be reviewed by an independent civilian oversight board. Every officer with multiple complaints will face automatic suspension pending investigation. And every victim of Officer Whitmore will have their cases reopened. More cheers. More tears. But the crowd was waiting. Waiting for the mayor. Waiting for Marcus. And what came next would be shared 10 million times that ***. Mayor Denise Johnson approached the microphone. She looked out at the sea of faces. Her city. Her people. Her responsibility. 3 days ago, she began, my son was driving home from school. He was going to pick up his little sister from dance class. He was playing gospel music. He was thinking about his college essay. He was being a normal 17-year-old. She paused. And then he was pulled over. Not for speeding. Not for reckless driving. Not for any traffic violation at all. He was pulled over because a white officer saw a black teenager in a nice car and decided that was suspicious enough. The crowd was silent. Hanging on every word. My son did everything right. He pulled into a well-lit public space. He kept his hands visible. He was polite, cooperative, respectful. He followed every instruction I'd given him since he was 12 years old, instructions I never should have had to give. Her voice broke. Just for a moment. And still, he was handcuffed. Still, he was slammed against a car. Still, he was accused of being a thief. Because in Derek Whitmore's eyes, my son's skin was his crime. She looked directly into the cameras. I want every parent watching this to understand something. This didn't happen because Marcus did something wrong. This happened because our system is broken. This happened because for too long, we've allowed officers like Whitmore to operate with impunity. This happened because black lives, in too many places, still don't matter enough. She stepped aside. My son would like to speak. Marcus approached the microphone. He looked younger than 17. And older. All at once. Hi. His voice wavered, then steadied. I'm Marcus Johnson. I'm 17. I'm a senior at Myers Park. I've been accepted to Morehouse College. I want to be a civil rights attorney, like my mom. He swallowed. 3 days ago, I was handcuffed on the side of the road for driving my mom's car. The officer said he knew a thief when he saw one. He didn't know anything about me. He didn't know my GPA, my college plans, my family. He saw my skin. That was enough. The crowd leaned in. I'm up here today because I have a platform. My mom is the mayor. People are listening. But I want you to think about the people who don't have platforms. The 4 to 7 people who came forward this week, most of them didn't have mayors for mothers. They didn't have cameras on their side. They reported what happened, and nothing changed. He looked out at the crowd. I keep thinking about this kid named Javon Mitchell. He was 12 years old when Officer Whitmore arrested him. His crime was slamming a locker door. He was expelled, charged, and his life was never the same. Nobody made a press conference for Javon. Nobody believed him. And now he's in prison, and Officer Whitmore was still out here, still wearing a badge, still doing this to other people. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's not justice. That's a system that picks and chooses who matters. And I'm standing here today to say that we all matter. Every black kid driving to school. Every black mom going to work. Every black father coaching Little League. We're not criminals. We're not threats. We're citizens. And we deserve to be treated like it. The crowd rose to their feet. But the press conference wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Agent Carter approached the podium. I have an announcement that I believe the public deserves to hear. The crowd quieted. During our investigation of Officer Whitmore, we discovered something significant. For the past 18 months, Officer Whitmore has been under separate investigation by the FBI. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The investigation involves suspected involvement in a network of officers who were systematically targeting black-owned businesses for traffic stops. These stops were designed to harass, intimidate, and in some cases, extort business owners. The gasps turned to murmurs. Murmurs turned to shouts. Officer Whitmore is now facing additional federal charges including racketeering, conspiracy, and civil rights violations under the color of law. The plaza erupted. Whitmore hadn't just been a rogue officer. He'd been part of something bigger. A network. A conspiracy. And Marcus's traffic stop, captured on a dozen cameras, had blown the whole thing wide open. Because investigators had pulled Whitmore's dashcam footage. And on that footage, they'd found something he'd never intended anyone to see. Radio communications with other officers. Discussions about targets. About easy marks. About teaching them a lesson. Whitmore had recorded his own crimes. For 18 months. And now, it was all evidence. Asterisk asterisk sometimes, the universe has a way of serving justice. Asterisk asterisk. 6 months later, Derek Whitmore stood trial in federal court. The charges were extensive. Assault. False imprisonment. Civil rights violations. Racketeering. Conspiracy. Extortion. 4 to 7 victims testified. 4 to 7 stories of being stopped for nothing. Of being handcuffed for breathing. Of being terrorized by a man who wore a badge. Patricia Coleman took the stand. I watched him brutalize that young man, she said. And I knew, in that moment, that I had to do something. Because how many times had this happened when nobody was watching? How many people had suffered alone? Tanya Richards took the stand. He made me feel like a criminal for driving to work. He searched my car. He touched my belongings. He looked at me like I was nothing. And then he let me go like nothing happened. Like he'd done me a favor by not arresting me for existing. Javon Mitchell, now 24, out on parole, testified by video link. I was 12 years old. I slammed a locker because some kids were bullying me. And that man tackled me. He handcuffed me. He told me I was going to prison. I was 12. Javon's voice cracked. And you know what? He was right. I did go to prison. Eventually. Because after that day, I wasn't the same. I was angry. I was scared. I made bad choices. And I've spent the last decade paying for those choices. But I want everybody to know, it started with him. It started with Derek Whitmore deciding that a 12-year-old black boy slamming a locker was a threat to society. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. The verdict, guilty on all counts. Whitmore collapsed in his chair. His attorney's arguments about overzealous prosecution and political witch hunts had fallen flat. The evidence was overwhelming. The victims were too many. The truth was undeniable. Judge Patricia Montgomery, a 63-year-old black woman who had been appointed to the federal bench by the first black president, delivered the sentence. Mr. Whitmore, you swore an oath to protect and serve. Instead, you preyed upon the very citizens you were supposed to defend. You used your badge as a weapon. You used your authority as a tool of oppression. And you did so knowingly, willingly, and without remorse. She adjusted her glasses. The court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison. You will be eligible for parole after serving a minimum of 15 years. May God have mercy on your soul, because this court has none to spare. The courtroom erupted. Cheers from the gallery. Sobs from the victims. And silence from Derek Whitmore. In the months that followed, Charlotte changed. Chief Warren's reforms were implemented. A civilian oversight board was established. Body cameras became mandatory for all officers. And the complaints process was overhauled completely. Every victim of Derek Whitmore was offered a settlement. The city paid out over $12 million in damages. Not because it erased what happened, but because it acknowledged it. Javon Mitchell's case was reopened. His conviction was not overturned. He had committed a crime, and he acknowledged that. But his sentence was reduced. He was released from prison. And Mayor Johnson offered him a job in her community outreach office. Everyone deserves a second chance, she said at the press conference announcing his hire. Javon was failed by a system that should have protected him. The least we can do is give him an opportunity to rebuild. Patricia Coleman was honored by the city council for courage in the face of injustice. She received a standing ovation. I didn't do anything special, she told the crowd afterward. I just did what any teacher would do. I stood up for a child who needed help. That's all. But it wasn't all. It was everything. One woman with a phone. One decision to keep recording. One act of bravery that changed everything. Sometimes, that's all it takes. Marcus Johnson graduated from Myers Park High School at the top of his class. His graduation speech was broadcast nationally. I've learned something this year, he said to his classmates. I've learned that doing everything right isn't always enough. But I've also learned that doing the right thing, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, is always worth it. He looked out at the audience. His mother in the front row. His sister beside her. His father, a surgeon who had taken the day off, wiping his eyes. I'm going to Morehouse in the fall. And then I'm going to law school. And then I'm coming back here, to Charlotte, to make sure that what happened to me never happens to another kid. That's my promise. To Javon Mitchell. To the 4 to 7 victims who came forward. To every black child in America who's been told that their skin makes them suspicious. You are not suspicious. You are brilliant. You are worthy. And you deserve better. He raised his fist. We all deserve better. And together, we're going to build it. The crowd rose. Cheers echoed across the football field. And Denise Johnson, mayor of Charlotte, mother of Marcus, daughter of activists, granddaughter of sharecroppers. She wept. Not from sadness. From pride. From hope. From the knowledge that the fight was far from over. But that her son was ready to carry it forward. 3 years later, Marcus Johnson sat in his dorm room at Morehouse College. He was 20 years old now. A junior. Pre-law. Still a 3.9 GPA. Still determined. Still that same kid from Charlotte who had been handcuffed for driving his mother's car. But different too. Stronger. More focused. Absolutely unshakable. He was writing an essay for his constitutional law class when his phone buzzed. A text from his mother. Whitmore's parole hearing was today. Denied. His staying locked up. Marcus stared at the message. 3 years ago, that name had haunted him. Had kept him up at night. Had made him flinch every time he saw a police car in his rearview mirror. But now? Now it was just a name. A cautionary tale. A reminder of what happened when good people stayed silent. He texted back, good. Then he added, "How's Javon?" His mother responded, "Running the youth outreach program now. He spoke at a high school yesterday." Standing ovation. Marcus smiled. Javon Mitchell. The boy who'd been failed. The man who'd been redeemed. The proof that second chances matter. That people can change. That justice, even when it comes late, still means something. Marcus put down his phone and looked out the window. Atlanta sparkled in the evening light. A city built by black excellence. A city where he was building his future. He thought about his mother. Her strength. Her sacrifice. Her refusal to let injustice stand. He thought about Patricia Coleman. A stranger who had become a hero. Who had proven that one person, one phone, one decision could change everything. He thought about all the people who had come forward. The 47 voices that had finally been heard. The network that had been exposed. The system that was, slowly, painfully, finally being fixed. And he thought about himself. The scared teenager who had trembled with his hands on the steering wheel. The young man who had found his voice at a press conference. The future lawyer who would spend his life fighting for justice. One day, he said to himself, no black mother will have to teach her son how to survive a traffic stop. It was a big dream. Maybe an impossible one. But Marcus Johnson had learned something in the last 3 years. Impossible was just another word for not yet. And he had his whole life to make it happen. What happened to Marcus Johnson was not unique. Every day, in every city in America, black drivers are pulled over for nothing. They are questioned, searched, handcuffed, and humiliated. Most of them don't have mayors for mothers. Most of them don't have cameras recording. Most of them suffer in silence, and nothing changes. But sometimes, the right people are watching. Sometimes, the truth comes out. Sometimes, the system that failed for so long is forced to reckon with its sins. Derek Whitmore thought he was untouchable. 22 years of complaints, and nothing ever happened. Until a 17-year-old boy with a 3.9 GPA drove his mother's Mercedes to pick up his sister. Until a retired schoolteacher decided to hit record. Until a city said enough. Today, Whitmore sits in federal prison. Today, Javon Mitchell runs a youth program. Today, Marcus Johnson is in law school, preparing to spend his life dismantling the systems that tried to break him. And today, mothers across America are sharing this story. Saying to their sons and daughters, you see? You matter. Your voice matters. And we will not stop fighting until the world treats you the way you deserve to be treated. Because her victory was more than personal. It reminded every black mother watching that dignity doesn't stop at a red light. It reminded every black son that his worth isn't determined by the color of his skin. It reminded every American that justice delayed is not justice denied. It is justice demanded. And eventually, inevitably, it is justice delivered. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. Tell us, what would you have done in Marcus's position? Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, every time you speak up, every time you record, every time you refuse to look away, you become part of the change. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.